What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again once again, and today, people, we have a long one. That's right, we're finally talking about the Bungie GDC presentation. What Bungie game developer presentation, I hear you ask? Well, it's the one where they as a company outline how every other company who wants to make a live service game needs to train their player base to accept nothing more than a minimally viable product. Yay! Gaming's doomed. But before we get started, a word from our sponsor, NordVPN. That's right, NordVPN is back again, once again, with amazing deals for the holiday season. The internet is always a dangerous place, especially around this time of year when more people are trying to rip you off than ever before. Follow me here for a minute. You're out and about, you're doing your holiday shopping, when you find something nice, but you think to yourself, maybe, just maybe, I can get it cheaper online. Reasonable conclusion, but who wants to deal with leaving the mall, hopping in their car, driving all the way home, just so they can go online and find out if something's cheaper? More so because you could just waste all that time to find out it was actually cheaper at the mall. So what you do is you hop into your favorite cafe with their free public Wi-Fi. Free public Wi-Fi can be compromised by criminals who want to intercept your data. These bad guys quietly insert themselves between you and your destination, which lets them spy on your data and even alter it. So you want to surf the web at your local cafe. You connect to freecafewifi.exe without thinking that your free cafe Wi-Fi could be sabotaged, and without thinking you have stumbled into a trap. It's a fake network set up as part of an evil twin. While you're browsing, criminals will harvest any sensitive data you enter. The solution? Well, with NordVPN, you can encrypt your online traffic at all times.
But Joker, VPNs are expensive.
I hear you cry out, O contrarian commenter of contrarian comments, but that's where you're wrong. Because you can go to nordvpn.com/butjoker and set yourself up for one awesome deal, where you can get a huge discount with the purchase of a 2-year plan plus 4 additional months for free. And the best part, with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee, it's absolutely risk-free. By Jove, good sir! Did I hear you say 4 free months? Yes, I did. And all you have to do is go to nordvpn.com/butjoker. And with that, I would like to thank NordVPN for sponsoring the channel. But back to our regularly scheduled programming. So recently, Bungie's 2022 Game Developers Conference presentation, From Box Product to Live Service, How Destiny 2 Transformed Bungie by Justin Truman, that was a mouthful, came to light. And it was, well, it was a thing that exists. A 84-page document about how management and Bungie views the creation of content for Destiny in general and the maintaining of it as a live service game. In fact, they were explaining this as the roadmap to all other developers who want to follow in their footsteps. Now, Justin Truman, the guy giving the presentation, isn't just some random. To quote himself, let's get the intros out of the way. I am Justin Truman, and I'm general manager of Destiny 2. I've got about 20 years of game dev experience on console and PC. The last 12 years have been at Bungie, working on Destiny. On Destiny, I've worked on a bunch of different roles: engineering, design, production, and business. So my goal in this talk is to speak about Bungie's evolution as a studio in a really cross-discipline way. It is also worth saying, while I'm the one up here speaking, every learning in here was the collective contribution of so many talented and insightful folks at Bungie. The only part I'll take sole credit for is any mistake or dumb statement I'm about to make. And boy oh boy, will there be dumb statements aplenty, like this one, which really just drives home the team spirit and Bungie mentality that goes into the ideology behind creating Destiny and helping Sony create 12 more live service games by 2025, but hey, who's counting? So Truman says, and I quote, "But I'm getting ahead of myself." So, from way back in the Halo days, all the way through Destiny 2 launch, our process was pretty straightforward. Hire the best talent in the industry, give them lots of freedom to use their gut and their creative process to make what they consider the best game possible. Release that product with a bang and a Halo-sized marketing push. Trust that success, by every definition, would follow. This was all summed up by our studio motto on the wall in front of our studio. We make games we want to play. We believe that when you trust your gut on making something awesome, making something that you can't wait to play, that all the different forms of success you might want, critical acclaim, sales, engaged players, will just flow naturally and intuitively from that. And this picture is old and grainy. It's an old picture I found on my cell phone because we took that motto down a little while after Destiny 2 launched, as we evolved our view on what success meant. Our new studio motto is, we create worlds that inspire friendship. This new studio's purpose has a lot of benefits over the old one, including the fact that we make games we want to play. Sounded a little too much like it was just gatekeeping for bald, middle-aged white guys like me. But besides adopting a more global and inclusive view, this is really about a shift away from that box product mindset into the service mindset. And I'm not talking about product design or business model. I'm not talking about free-to-play or microtransactions. I'm talking about something much more fundamental to how we think about success. Let me get this right. Let me make sure I understand what's going on here. Somehow, some way, through some Herculean leap in logic that us mere mortals will never be able to comprehend, making a quality product is one, not only not inclusive enough, but two, gatekeeping done by balding middle-aged dudes. So Bungie as a studio, with the release of Destiny 2, went from this mentality of excellence to being good is gatekeeping. Being excellent is gatekeeping. Creating fun and challenging yet still rewarding content is gatekeeping. Oh, Truman dresses it up in all these fancy words, but really it's about dumbing it down and appealing to the lowest common denominator. Inclusivity isn't making everything easy. The only reason that you want to dumb a game down to this no guardian left behind mentality isn't for inclusivity. Halo was inclusive. The reason you do it is because you want to sell to the most people possible. It's the whale mentality. Your whales are going to go away if they spend a ton of money on the game and then they go into PvP and they get their shit kicked in. That's the reality of it. You lose your whales because they actually have to get good at playing the game. They can't just spend money. And that might sound like a jaded point of view, and if we were talking about any other game, you might have a point. But we have seen how Destiny has evolved over the years to be dumber and dumber and dumber. Not more inclusive. There's a conflation there that I do not agree with. But moving forward, in the presentation, Truman goes over how critics love the game. But in February of 2018, the reality of the game state slapped them in the face. It's one thing for critics to like it. It's another for players to. Dun dun dun! Yeah, duh. See, here's the thing that most people don't understand about critics that aren't necessarily tied to one specific game. Critics have dozens of games they have to play.
They have deadlines, they have specialties.
If game journalism outlet number 365 has their RTS guy play an FPS, well, then they might not like it.
Or if they have their MMO girl play a puzzle game, they might not like it, because it just doesn't jive with what they're into. There's also the fact that reviewing Destiny is an ongoing process at any given time.
There's first impressions, then there's when an expansion releases. There's two modes for Destiny DLC. There's playing the story, getting through that, and going through the kind of mid-game meandering leveling, and then playing the end game. Those two are two very different games. But I digress. What did they learn in February of 2018? Quote, and this moment right here, in February 2018.
This moment right here was fucking terrifying. So this graph shows the trend of our weekly active users.
And at the rate we were shedding players, we did the math. And if this continued over 5 more weeks, our entire player population would be gone. We were, seriously, 1 month away from having to close up shop on Destiny 2 altogether. Hey fanboys, I'll take all those apologies that I'll never see for my coverage of Destiny 2 Year 1 in triplicate, but because I'll never see them, we'll just do a belated one of these.
Do the thing.
Now I don't know if you noticed, but in November of 2022, Destiny 2 hit its lowest Steam player count ever. And generally Steam apparently makes up over half the player base. Yeah! Let's make a couple leaps in logic here. If things were worse on Steam in February than they've ever been, how many weeks away were they then? Oh, and I guess that earns me another one of these.
Do the thing.
Because here's the thing, I don't just call out issues in Destiny to hear the sound of my voice. I'm actually not a huge fan of the sound of my voice. I know, surprising with as long as these videos go on. I actually genuinely like the game and want to see it go on and see it live on and see it get better and evolve and be amazing, especially if it's going to be the blueprint for every live service game going forward. And I don't know if you've noticed, But most companies trying to do the live service game failed. But the presentation goes on. On page 31, Bungie begins to talk about their mentality when it comes to live service games. Quote, "For a live service, more than anything, more important than even quality, a live service is about being fast. Back in 2010, you could have a long-lasting, high-retention game just by having something super high quality, well-balanced and unchanged, that players keep coming back to for years and years. To stay afloat as a service today, you need to consistently be feeding your players, responding to their concerns, making the game better. If box products are in the business of over-delivery, live service is in the business of constant delivery. And to provide that consistent delivery to your players, you need to be fast as you can possibly be. And so at Bungie, one of the key lessons we codified here to shift our mindset is that velocity is more important than position. Your position is your game's quality right now. How good is it? What issues does it have? How much content does it have to engage your players? Those are all important, but so much more important is how fast you can change that position. If your players need more content, how fast can you funnel that into the game? If your game has an unbalanced meta, how long does it stay unbalanced? If your community has a valid complaint, how quickly can you respond? And this is why, in this important but unintrusive way, I'd rather have fast than perfect. Because being perfect or even being great is your current position, but fast is your velocity. A fast game will become great, but a great slow game will very quickly fall behind. Now, at first blush, that doesn't seem all that bad. It even kind of makes sense. After all, what is the biggest difference between games like Halo Infinite or Anthem and Destiny 1, Destiny 2? Halo and Anthem hemorrhaged players because the quality of their game was shit. And so on top of having colossal quality control issues, their ability to put content out to keep players engaged or respond to player feedback was incompetent at best. However, just because it sounds good on paper doesn't mean it's true. Again, all we have to do is point to the aforementioned hemorrhaging of Destiny 2 players in November. See, it's one thing to talk about being fast when you're churning out quality piece of content after quality piece of content. It's another thing to talk about being fast when the quality of your game is abject denial of reality. Why is Destiny 2 hemorrhaging players if the quality of the content doesn't matter? Oh wait, because quality does. Part of the reason other live service games fail is not because of velocity when it comes to production of content or the fixing of glitches and bugs. It's because of the sunken cost. They don't want to wait for another live service MMO wannabe looter shooter to get good. This is actually why so many people reject the idea of a Destiny 3, which is a funny thing because it's a tacit admission that people don't believe Bungie can actually develop a good game. But what they have right now is, more or less good enough. The presentation then goes on to talk about redefining success. Quote, redefine success. And a bunch of this, the big cultural hurdle for your team and your organization. One of the main themes that I'm going to keep returning to is about redefining success. Like, what does quality mean to you and your team? And I don't just mean in terms of business goals, I mean in your bones, in your heart. Why do you get up and go to work every day? For us, it used to mean being perfect, being impeachable, being uncriticizable. That's all part of the box product mindset. But now, we're instead focused on being fast. Now here's the thing. Being good, being perfect, being fast are not all mutually exclusive. Look, bugs are going to happen. That's just the nature of making a game. Things are going to be overtuned. Things are going to be undertuned. But do you know what game manages to deliver quality content on a similar time scale? That's right, Final Fantasy XIV.
But Joker! Final Fantasy XIV and Destiny are not comparable!
I've said it before, I'll say it again. If Bungie wants to call Destiny an MMO, it gets compared to other MMOs. But you are correct, oh contrarian commenter of contrarian comment. It's not fair. Destiny was not designed to be an MMO. It was designed to be a disposable box product. Halo with extra steps. That has since then had an MMO bootstrap to it. As Bungie's mentality of what makes a good game has shifted from high quality to cheap and disposable. That's the actual reality. If we look at the product, what do we have? We have a game that is cheap and disposable. I mean, that's why content vaulting exists, because they realize that nobody wants to play that content in perpetuity, because they didn't make that content to be enjoyed in perpetuity. They made it to get out fast, and that's why it has become a slog. That's why it's become so redundant and repetitive. Final Fantasy XIV, by contrast, was built from the ground up to be an MMO. However, the two are more comparable than I think a lot of people give credit. All anybody needs to do is look back to Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. When Final Fantasy XIV was originally released, it was disastrous. One of the biggest issues with Final Fantasy XIV's original release was the game and the engine. They tried to build an MMO with tools designed for really linear, single-player games. If that sounds very similar to Destiny 2, it's because both games weren't designed with tools meant to make MMOs. And yeah, you can build on a shit foundation, but it's only a matter of time before it all comes crumbling down. See, the problem with Bungie is this mentality of, we need to make a product as fast as we can. However, this is still pretty much the case. And don't get me wrong, they have made improvements and updated the Tiger engine. But any mechanic will tell you it's pretty hard to work on a car's engine while it's going 90 miles an hour down a highway. And so in practice, how has Bungie kept up with the demand for content that they believe exists? Well, the first part of it was to remove content. Nobody wants 47 different horde modes in the game at the same time that are all basically the same thing with different loot. Loot that becomes outdated as more and more loot is introduced into the game. You know, as these things do. So I guess it was just a happy coincidence that content vaulting things, creating the Destiny content vault, and then reintroducing things that they've removed just so happened to line up with their goal of being fast. I'm not saying, I'm just, saying. Kind of convenient. So instead of smart scheduling or hiring more people, which Truman says they haven't done, quote, at any given moment, we have 5 to 6 releases in various stages of development, and we're not a significantly larger team than we were when we were shipping Destiny 2. Now, Truman makes that sound like a success story. However, it's kinda sort of,
Well, a lie.
very misleading at least. While Bungie might not be that much bigger, the Destiny 2 development era Bungie had something the current one doesn't have: High Moon Studios and Vicarious Visions. You know, the people responsible for the PC port of Destiny 2 when it was good, much of Forsaken, the Warmind DLC, some of the seasonal content during the Forsaken era. In fact, we were told by Luke Smith to not expect Forsaken-sized DLC anymore because they didn't have the help of Activision. So for Truman to say this is just abject denial of reality. The point being, there are clearly a lot of issues that could be solved with more hands on deck, as we saw with the Forsaken, High Moon Studios, and Vicarious Visions era of Destiny. But having 2 satellite studios that you apparently don't credit with helping in the development of Destiny 2 and Forsaken costs money. And as a corporation,
If Bungie doesn't have to spend money, they won't.
they will keep churning out the same banal shit over and over and over again until push comes to shove. And we saw that during the November Exodus. Bungie is now talking about how they're going to evolve the seasonal model during Lightfall. But several projects are already in the work, and well, we probably won't see anything until mid to end of 2023. I mean, after all, look at how long it took Bungie to reskin Frontier and try to tell us it was a new PvP map. But this tends to be the pattern. Destiny goes to shit, the community gets outraged, and we get Taken King, we get Forsaken. We even kinda sorta get Witch Queen. Witch Queen was a great DLC, it's everything after that sucked. But I digress. The Destiny Content Vault has given Bungie a bunch of content to reuse, reissue, and recycle, so they can keep up with this illusion of velocity that is taking them straight towards stagnation. Justin talks a lot about train stations in this presentation, but a video game isn't a train. A video game is a theme park, and theme parks live and die based on their amusement. And every theme park knows you have to do something new and amazing and spectacular. Have a cool show, have a new ride, have a new gimmick to bring people in. Tortured metaphors aside, the presentation continues. Now, I'm going to go ahead and skip a bunch for the sake of brevity. The link to the whole presentation will be in the description below. On page 66, Truman states, "There is a great, maybe apocryphal Miyamoto quote, that a delayed game is eventually good, but a bad game is bad forever. But once you're in a train station mindset, you actually have almost the opposite approach. Because a delayed train doesn't just hurt that train, it potentially causes cascade failure and chaos in the whole station. And the reality is, today, a bad game can be fixed." Now, I too believe that this quote is dubiously attributed to Miyamoto, but that's neither here nor there. The point is this idea. It doesn't matter what Bungie's putting out there, it doesn't matter if it's good, it doesn't matter if it's finished, it doesn't even matter if it's functional. because the live service aspect of the game is fixing the game. If you put something out broken, then it always looks like you're doing something because you're always fixing and continuing to develop
The product they put out half broken or half finished.
Now, you would think that that also causes delays because now you're doubling back on something you've already put out.
But this mentality is also kinda terrifying. This GDC presentation is Bungie talking to a bunch of studios about how they have more or less created the only air quote successful live service game.
They're preaching this mentality to other developers who have either not tried or have failed to do what Bungie has done to walk in their footsteps. And they're like, yeah, quality doesn't matter. Oh, what, your game's just half finished? Just put it out there. You'll be fine. In fact, just keep putting half finished stuff out there. You'll be fine. Recycle content? Oh, yeah. It's all about velocity, baby. It's not about quality. It's not about giving your customers who are buying things from you something worth their money. No. Just put it out there. Just do the thing.
And then you remember something I've talked about over the course of several videos on this channel.
Bungie was bought by Sony, not for Destiny. Bungie still retains all rights and ownership of Destiny. Bungie was bought for the technology and the talent to help Sony create 12 live service games by 2025. We are standing on the precipice of a complete and utter shift in the gaming industry. A lot of people may hear that and think, oh man, Joker, you're being doom and gloom. But no, think about it. Trends that work are followed. Trends that don't work are left behind. And just because something's working doesn't mean it's good for the majority of customers. Look at loot boxes. All that took was a handful of whales for each and every game that implemented them for it to be such a pervasive thing that countries had to start legislating against it. And then think about how profitable it must be to put out a half-finished game and then subsidize your player base to finish the development of that game over the course of months, if not years. And then if interest in that game does wane, well, they just discontinue it. See Anthem. The point I'm making is the writing is on the wall. Destiny 2 is the blueprint. And you can't bitch when everything comes crashing down and people warned you that Destiny 2 is going to be the blueprint for the next
5 to 10 years of gaming.
And then that's all you get. Or you get lesser versions of that. Because it'll just become a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
People tried to replicate what Bungie did.
And as we've seen so far, no one else has been really able to capture that lightning. And yet, they will try.
Truman then goes on to say, our seasons in Destiny are the best they've ever been. So are our expansions.
And our seasons got there quicker,
despite being under much tighter scheduling constraints. Do you know why?
Ooh, pick me. I know why. Because I actually play the game.
It's the 4 R's of Bungie. Reskinned, recycled, reissued, and reused. Because we're already on season 16. We've been able to iterate so many times as train after train passes through the station to get where we are today. I guess redefining success also means being in abject denial of reality because what Justin is saying here simply isn't true. The only thing that approaches something someone might conflate as realistic is the idea that seasons might be releasing on schedule, but even then, you would hope so because every major expansion for the last couple of years has had delays. To the point that Witch Queen was delayed 6 months. So I would hope with 6 extra months of development time, their seasons are on track to release when they should. You would hope with 6 more months of development time kind of backlogged in the pipeline that the other teams working on things could maybe do a little more.
Oh, but we can't have that. The presentation meanders on for quite a while before we get the infamous over-delivery quote that basically kind of started this entire fiasco. And here's the last, almost painful realization of train stations. Remember back when I said box products are in the business of over-delivery? Over-delivery is actually dangerous for a train station.
With every release you put out there,
you are setting a pattern for your community
and your players.
If we release an expansion with 2 raids, the next year, folks will be upset if there's only 1 raid. We hurt the station by making a rogue decision on 1 train. But at the same time, and this is why this lesson is painful, so much of quality and delight in our craft
comes from
over-delivery, right? From giving folks stuff stuff above and beyond what they expected. We still want that. We still want to surprise and delight and sometimes overwhelm our players, but we need to be mindful of the patterns and the implied future commitments that we've set for ourselves each time. This is tough, and this is one, honestly, we're still grappling the hardest with. It is hard to tell a team that has extra cycles and energy and want to do something amazing that would totally be amazing and awesome for the game. We should not ship this because it is an over-delivery. That would set up failure on future trains. Now, in principle and practice, there is a modicum of truth to this, on paper. Look at the expectations for yearly expansions that were set with Forsaken. Forsaken was the best piece of Destiny content ever released. It actually behooves Bungie to have gutted Forsaken because now new players onboarding with Witch Queen and Lightfall won't know what to expect by comparison. They think that Witch Queen or Lightfall or Beyond Light or Shadowkeep is all $40 buys you,
when it used to be a lot more. And a lot more quality at that.
The point is, Bungie's absolutely right. If they deliver 2 raids in one expansion for $40 instead of off-putting it later in the year or reissuing, reskinning a raid from Destiny 1, people will expect that there should be 2 raids in expansion. However, as customers, we need to understand it is in a company's best interest to give you as little as possible, to nickel and dime you for everything. Bungie's entire goal is to make the player base's expectations so low that they can basically get away with whatever they want. Deliver whatever content they want, have nobody to answer to, but they still want your money. They want your money to be their participation trophy. And even with all that said, Bungie has a bit of broken logic here. People are always going to bitch. Good, bad, indifferent, people are always going to find something to criticize. So instead of just blowing people away and making the criticism look silly, Bungie has decided to train their player base like dogs to settle for less, to settle for junk food, to settle for disappointment, while still charging the same price for that junk food as high quality steak. I think the biggest takeaway from Truman's presentation to the Bungie social media manager saying, well, you guys already bought it anyways, we don't have to advertise, is this. To quote Truman himself, to paint it in a more positive, proactive light, the lessons we're still learning is that everything we deliver needs to be a blueprint. We need to understand how it will be replicated, and whether we can do that repeating sustainability. And if we can't repeat the blueprint, or we don't want to, we need to make sure player expectations are set up to match ours. Bungie is no longer in the market of creating critically acclaimed, high-quality, fulfilling experiences. And we see that with Destiny. Destiny has always lived in this realm where the idea of Destiny was more gratifying, more important, more hopeful than the actual implementation of the game. People like the idea of the potential behind Destiny, but apparently Bungie doesn't care. They are satisfied with creating a minimally viable product. They are satisfied with doing the bare minimum. And really, that is truly sad. But hey, at least everybody's expectations are now set. We now know what Destiny is. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. And above all else, stay frosty.